People are saying that V has done something that would insinuate he might be part of the LGBT community, as well as posting a gay fantasy. We also have his recent love letter and what that is about, as well as people really mad at J-Hope. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave Disci, let's get into it. J-Hope has recently got a lot of backlash, and this was an interesting one. I need to give some backstory on what Pharrell has done, and then flash forward to what's going on now and how he's connected to J-Hope right now. Pharrell performed at the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces Gala. I believe he performed happy and apparently contributed to helping raise $60 million for the gala. Some people believe is a dig or political commentary towards the Palestinians, basically saying that he is siding with Israel, and of course we know what's going on over there. And then fast forward, now people are talking about how J-Hope and Pharrell seemingly are working together, and a recent picture has come out showing them potentially having a collaboration. The internet quickly flooded with people telling the label to either educate themselves or for them to educate BTS on working with people who remain compliant or in association with the idea. A lot of people were tweeting out asking J-Hope and BTS to, in quotes, kindly consider deleting the photo. I want to pause right there and say how childish this is. And I'm not talking about the statement of asking someone to reconsider a photo or reconsider what they stand for. That's not childish. But how this is being presented is extremely childish. I want to give a very neutral and non-biased point of view to address this. So I just put this tweet into ChatGPT and asked what they thought the tone was. And this is what they said. This message is considered immature and reminiscent of something written by a child because of its tone, structure, and logic. It relies on emotional accusations, informal phrasing, and lacks nuance about both the situation and the individuals involved. And then it goes on to say things like, of course, demanding something is very childish and is very reminiscent of a child throwing a temper tantrum. If you want to get your point across, don't write something like this. Do your research and then write a very well-informed tweet or post about your side. And then reading something like this does not make me personally want to dig into things more, even if you're right. I'm going to automatically assume you're wrong because it reads as if a child is writing this. And again, any person who's mature would realize that there are two sides to a story, and clearly there's one side here that we have not even begun to understand or consider. While Pharrell was believed to have performed at this gala, it wasn't him contributing to the donation, but there were several other celebrities that were there that all likely contributed to the donation that was raised. He has openly talked about not wanting music to be political and him not wanting to choose a side at all, and thus him being there represents him not choosing a side. It represents him just performing, to which he was also believed to have gone up on stage and spoke about how he wants peace. What a better place to say that, to talk about it, to let your voice be heard and be heard by people in the room than that particular place performing a song like Happy, as well as giving that message of peace. It's going to resonate with people and it's going to hit people a lot harder than if you were to just say that on a stage on his regular show. He also could have chosen to not say anything and not perform at all. However, I believe this stance was probably more important than if he were to publicly say, I'm not going to be a part of this. So that's my belief in this whole situation, and obviously they decided to not include this perspective in their tweet. Getting into a little bit of happier news, we are seeing a love letter that was said by V. This is the main reason why people like tuning into his live streams, because he leaves cute little notes here and there vocally, and we get to have those moments. Some people like to put those as ringtones, and some people like to just have those videos on their phone to look at when they feel sad, so it's all very fun to have. V decided to read some Chinese love notes. He was saying that he misses that, whoever this person is, and he kept it kind of anonymous, saying, I think I love you, and that sort of stuff. And a lot of people very quickly realized that this was not for that because it was in Chinese, and it probably was for the Chinese community over there. I don't know if it was before or after this live stream, but some people decided to project his face onto the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and they did. And I think it was just a regular photo of him, as well as a photo he did with Tear Tear, the makeup brand. And this was believed to have been done as a gift from the Chinese fans, right? So it could have either happened right after this, and the Chinese community just felt so grateful that he attempted to speak Chinese and all that stuff, or it was done before and it was always meant to have been done. There likely were different fandoms in China that were doing this, so there's a chance that some of the other projections might have been a birthday celebration, while others were just a thank you. And you know, his Chinese is okay. I'm very grateful to have heard it. I also do believe that K-pop idols are taught various different languages, including Chinese, prior to their debut. Nowadays, English is probably in there as well, but they have expected or at least hoped to speak some variations of Chinese. They definitely have spoken Japanese, and then nowadays, as I said, English, because these are their biggest markets. So much so that, of course, K-pop idols often make albums that are just in Japanese. I think when BTS was much younger, when they first started out, they did do their album in various different languages, maybe to test which markets they were going to perform the best in, including Chinese, but they haven't done that since, I don't think. But that also could explain why his Chinese is okay. Like, his tones are there. It's not smooth. It's obviously choppy and beginner level, but he's a lot closer than just a random person you would pick on the street that wouldn't know any Chinese. So this, of course, makes the Chinese community feel very grateful, right? It's not even that he said those words, it's that he was being very respectful with those words, and he had attempted to try to get them correct. And it sounded like, for the most part, the tones were there. Like, he got them. I could be wrong in terms of the fact that, like, my Chinese vocabulary is not huge, so he could be saying something else, but since I know these specific words that he's saying, I can tell what he's saying. But maybe actually native Chinese speakers think he's saying something a little bit different. So if you speak Chinese, definitely let me know if you had seen the video and how you felt about his Chinese and if it was good. So there is this boy group called Brockhampton. V recently shared one of the songs on his Instagram called Any Way You Want. Then it was also believed that he mentioned listening to the song Summer by them as well. Now, it's important to keep in mind this group has some pretty explicit lyrics that have talked about LGBT relationships because a few of the members in the group are gay, so they have talked about it in some detail. Now, the two songs that V has shared or has mentioned listening to have no real LGBT references in them, and the two songs that he mentioned talk more about complex relationships, vulnerability, and that sort of stuff. So a song that can relate to pretty much anyone. But also, of course, people who are in the LGBT community could find relatability to it, but it's not specifically just that. Now, some people have made some assumptions as to where V falls on the spectrum, given the fact that he might listen to a group like this and loves their songs or potentially enjoys the songs that have the LGBT references in them. This, of course, coincides with the fact that he was believed to love a gay iconic movie called Call Me By Your Name, which of course is extremely gay, right? Like, that whole movie is just gay. There's no parts of it that is specifically marketed towards straight people. So people have wondered what V's orientation is, and given the fact that he is in a dating rumor with a woman, people are saying that maybe he's bi. We don't know what his orientation is, and obviously that's very clear, otherwise we wouldn't be speculating about it. But perhaps he might not know either, and I think that that's okay as well. When does a K-pop idol, especially one at that level, have time to discover what their own sexuality is? Someone who has not only had to become a workhorse since they were a teenager, but someone who likely wasn't able to think about themselves for much of their life, or think about what it is that they would want. We are seeing the rise of more successful people, more CEOs, more whatever, and you'll see pretty quickly that a lot of those people, they tend to lose their virginity and get into a relationship much later in their life. Could this be because they're working all the time and they're just not interested in those things yet because they want to chase money? Absolutely. But a lot of that is because they just simply don't have time or the mental capacity to consider dating someone. Dating is extremely time consuming, as many of you probably know. Imagine being in a bad relationship and having to sit on the phone for like 5 hours while listening to your significant other scream about something that you did. I mean, these relationships do exist, right? And these are the relationships you have to get through to get to the ones that end up being a good fit. So obviously he wouldn't have time for that, right? And if he had experienced that, he probably would just give up looking altogether at that point because he's like, I just don't have the time. On top of that, if people found out he was queer or liked men, that would get out and become a huge issue. So the only way for him to discover if this is actually something that he likes would be to listen or to watch gay content. Now, of course, this is just my theory, and I hope and assume that he has no issue with me talking about this as a theory, and honestly, we don't know if he's just an ally that enjoys learning about new different cultures and different things or something else. I mean, after all, the gay community is very wrapped into fashion, and he probably has met a lot of gay people, which he might be curious about how they live, which I believe is probably more likely. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you check out Patreon. I'll leave a link at the top of the description. Thank you so much for this lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.